are these activities financed? Of course, we are joined by the DPP, Nuruddin Haji. It's such a pleasure having you on Business Cafe.
Thank you very much, Brenda.
Yes, and we are grateful on such short notice. When you're looking at the terrorist groups, I mean, of course, they destabilize everything, you know, the economics, the way people live, and also they create a lot of calamities. But how exactly do they access these funds, these finances?
Well, they access them in different ways. They can, for example, disguise themselves to be business people, or just normal, pedestrians or mwananchi on the ground, because they operate in different ways, and whatever convenience they can get in accessing the money, then they will do it. I think there are instances where they use family members. There are instances where they set up actual companies, front companies, where they run and make the monies and the illicit monies that will then support them in doing whatever illegal activities they want to do, or performing terrorism itself. For example, if you look at the Dusit, we saw that monies were changed through hawalas, through M-Pesa, through banks, and they used pseudonames and cover names to be able to access them. So there are different ways they can do it.
Right. And at the same time, when you're looking at the Kenyan context, what patterns have you seen over the last few years? Because they are also becoming very sophisticated.
Yes, one thing is, for example, they exploit our liberal economy in Kenya, our capitalist posture as a country, and of course as a hub. Kenya is an extremely important hub, and because of that, terrorists are likely to be more attracted, because it is easy then to move monies. To be able to undertake, for example, businesses with as much ease as possible. This then allows them to operate very easily. So the question is, how do we balance to ensure that our liberal economy and capitalist posture is protected and is not exploited? And this is where then we come up with rules and regulations that ensure we are able to strike that balance, offer the security that the country needs to be able to thrive, and also offer the security that will not allow terrorists and criminals to exploit the hub nature, the financial hub nature, the transport ability that Kenya has to offer within the continent.
All right, before we delve much deeper in relation to the measures, when you're looking at terrorism financing as a unit, we are having legal and illegal monies that are actually coming in to fund this specific vice. How do they do it? Because I can be doing legal business, but at the same time I'm financing a terror activity.
Yes, it's simple. There are very many ways. You could be a normal Kenyan citizen, but have been indoctrinated or radicalized, and therefore you're then willing to support a cause or support an ideology, because this is also an ideological war. Some individuals believe that what they are doing is actually part of their religion, part of their duty, and therefore they would be able to disguise themselves in different ways, and this is where then they try and exploit. And this then allows them to be able to operate with much ease and get to finance the terrorists themselves. Some people, they also organize themselves in terms of, they have people who deal with logistics, they have people who deal with intelligence, they have people who deal with enforcement, they have people who actually commit the terrorist act itself. And it's a whole system. And it is this system that we must be able to dismantle.
Yeah. And in a bid to dismantle that system, that is where yesterday you did launch the measures in collaboration with quite a number of government agencies. Yes. Talk to us a little bit about it, and what role will the specific agencies play in relation to this?
Yeah, what we've attempted to do is to ensure that there's no disjointed approach to fighting terrorism. I think from a long time, whether it is in Kenya or in other jurisdictions like the United States, one of the biggest problem has been disjointed approach into fighting terrorism. So what we, in essence, what we were trying to do is to ensure that we are all working on one, with one aim, that is to deal with the menace and the threat of terrorism. And with this, we've made sure that we are well coordinated, that we have the cooperation and the collaboration that is required, and that we are able to focus as a team, not individuals or individual institutions running on their own, because if that happens, then we are likely to fail. These rules and guidelines are there to also ensure that we have a one-stop shop where the investigator, the prosecutor, even the judicial officers and other officers from for example, the Financial Resource Center, the Asset Recovery Authority, the Witness Protection Agency, are able to work together in concert and ensure that we are effectively covering all areas and are in a position to deal with the threat. Yeah.
All right, so the Central Bank of Kenya already has some regulations in relation to anti-money laundering and also at the same time counter-terrorism activities. But in this specific approach, how exactly will you be able to trace the money?
In different ways. One, of course, is the central bank itself. That is the key in terms of the financial activities in the country. We can be able to see what is moving in and out through suspicious reports. There's also FRC that continuously monitors banking and financial institutions. And we have also been able, if you look at the guidelines, been able to ensure that we capacitate officers, both investigative officers and intelligence officers, to be able to analyze monies coming in and how they are being utilized and how they are flowing within the economy. And where there are suspicious activities, then red flags are raised and investigations are immediately undertaken. And it's through the investigations then we can tell whether it is a suspicious transaction that is related to maybe money laundering of other activities or money laundering in relation to terrorism. And once you're able to do that, actually, it gives us even more insight into whether really this person actually is involved in terrorism and who are some of the people they're dealing with. So analysis is very important, and we have been very keen to ensure that we are building an analyst's capability to be able to do that.
All right. One also key element that I saw in relation to the measures is transparency, yes, making it a bit more open. That's also very sensitive, because how do you do that and still ensure that people are able to retain their privacy?
You see, transparency are twofold. There is also, I don't know if I got your question right, but it is twofold. Transparency in how we are working is very important. And that's why we have brought on board the NGOs and the civil society, especially from the human rights organization. As you know, there's been a lot of accusation of excesses, police excesses and law enforcement excesses. And we want to ensure that if it really exists, then we have individuals with us who are going to work into ensuring that it doesn't. And where there are abuses, then we have organizations that will be there to ensure that the citizen is protected, and that we as law enforcement are adhering to the rule of law. So we've been open in that sense. In relation to, if you're also talking in relation to data protection and all that, we have tried to capture, to ensure that whatever data we deal with And we cannot, the police and ourselves cannot deal with any data unless we have a court order. So you go to a court, you get the court order, and then we are able to access somebody's data. Even when we are able to access that person's data, we try and ensure that the privacy and the confidentiality is maintained. The openness in this is that we involve the judiciary into it, but also you have other key institutions like the DPP that will make the applications if it feels it is satisfied, to then allow the investigators to pry into some of the information. And this cannot just be done in isolation. It must be driven by something, whether it is a suspicious report that has come from the banking sector, for example, or a suspicious report through whistleblowers or Mwananchi saying, you know, we can see there's a problem here, please look into it. Yeah.
All right, because, you know, we did see the outcry when the SIM card registration came into play earlier this week with the deadline on 15th, and Kenyans were quite concerned in relation to their information being captured. So, you know, privacy is, of course, a sensitive issue when it comes to Kenyans. Yes,
but it's also very important because these cards, in Kenya, we have M-Pesa and other mobile application, financial applications. And some of these applications are actually exploited. They're exploited by terrorists to come and harm Kenyans. So we must strike a balance. If we were to look at the Dusit, they really relied on M-Pesa and some of the loopholes that were there. And I think after interrogating this, Safaricom and CAK have therefore found it prudent that they should know who has what, who is holding what, and also to have limitation in terms of the SIM cards. In Dusit, we had over 30 SIM cards being utilized by one person. This is something that really needs to be curbed, and also the information needs to be somewhere. So what CAK and maybe Safaricom need to work on, and I think they have, is to ensure that they are safeguarded and that the data is not utilized for other purposes other than being stored and then utilized when and as is required.
All right. Legally. Looking at the global system, the European Union did launch the regulations on its own earlier this year in January. So how exactly is it tied with these regulations that were introduced yesterday? How is it tied to the global payment system?
Globally, I think, you know, as part of the international community, we have obligations that we must meet under the UN, if I'm not wrong, resolution. We are expected to have, I think 1373, we are expected to have had some of these things in place. So as Kenya, we felt that it would be very important for us to have that, especially considering that we are on the front line and we have been a country that has really been affected in the region by terrorism. I must say that Kenya has always been taking a lead in ensuring that we apply best practices within our legal system.
All right. Abi?
And DPP, of course, we've been taken, we've had a milestone when it comes to combating terrorism financing. I just want to hear from you. There seems to be disquiet, especially with the outlines that you have set out in regards to what the DCI will have to submit all the investigating evidence through your office. How will this play out, especially now that you are meant to be working as very close agencies?
Yeah, I think that is a misconception.
Okay.
And it has actually, it is a misrepresentation of the facts. Mm-hmm. The guidelines are very clear. Okay. There are instances where the DCI doesn't need to inform us. There are instances where investigations will begin without our knowledge, and most of the time it's on a need-to-know basis until when it is ready for prosecution. When it is ready for prosecution, then we will look into the file and advise.
All right.
But at no time do the rules say that they have to inform us on each and every investigations that they're doing? I think that is a total misrepresentation by some of the media houses, and I would ask that each and every person reads diligently and ensures that they capture what is there. I think we're going to release a statement to clarify that.
All right.
It's unfortunate, but I'm happy that I've had this opportunity to do the clarification.
All right, DPP, then as we wind up, as the community, because there's also community policing, how exactly can I, let's say, spot the suspicious transactions, and what do I do next? Perhaps, I've been looking at my neighbor and I think his behavioral patterns are a little bit different. Are there specific channels as opposed to the multi-platform that you created yesterday? What else can the community do in relation to report this suspicious activity?
Yeah, I think community policing is actually feeds into normal police. And also, for example, the Nyumba Kumi initiative. Suspicious transaction is not only at the bank. It could be just somebody suddenly has changed within the village and can be seen doing things or getting a certain lifestyle that he usually did not have, and maybe seeing that his movements are not as normal, but also from speech and from interaction. And I think there's been quite a number of training by the police through the community policing to help them being able to identify. Once they have that, they have ways and channels of communicating to them, and that's when investigations begin. And eventually, if it succeeds, then we're able to prosecute.
All right, thank you so much. Of course, we have been talking about terrorism financing with the DPP, Nuruddin Haji, on Business Cafe. It was such a lengthy discussion, but of course, key takeaways in relation to the measures and following the money to ensure that